Hey guys, I'm Amie Nemec, co-owner of Texas Wine Lover. We are the place to go if you are trying to discover Texas wines. So our website is txwinelover.com, and we have our new free mobile app available on Apple and Android. So if you don't already know us, you should check us out, and it's a good way to know all 510 wineries in the state of Texas. So I'm here in downtown Fredericksburg at Cabernet Grill. This is one of the hot spots in Fredericksburg for dinner, and they actually have the largest list of Texas wines available for you to enjoy with your dinner or even take a bottle home. Cabernet Grill started in 2001, and the team here, Ross Burtwell and his wife Mariana, are the chefs, and they are always cooking up something delicious. He actually made us chocolate chip cookies this morning. They were still warm. So if you can't tell, I love this place, and it should definitely be on your list if you are in Fredericksburg. So now we're chatting with Claire Richardson. She's the winemaker for Uplift Vineyard, which is one of the new labels and new property by William Chris Wine Company. So Claire, thanks for hanging out with us this morning. Tell us a little bit about what you did before you became a winemaker.
So before I was a winemaker, I was a student. I went to Texas A&M, and my degree is in food science. So I didn't have any past career or any big changes into the wine industry. I went straight in after college.
So what drew you to wine?
Many things. So from a young age, I always knew I never wanted to work at a desk job. So
The
in
pantsuit and high heels wasn't attractive?
no, dressing up, I don't mind dressing up, but like sitting at a desk all day staring at a computer was totally not my thing. And it's funny because I actually do quite a bit of that now, but yeah, so the hands-on aspect, growing up, food and wine has always been a big part of like everything in my family. So wine was always just there, but for a long time it was just there. It wasn't, I never thought of it as a career or anything like that. So in my studies, I really became interested in fermentation. That sparked my interest from the beginning. And so from there, I began weighing all of my options. My first one, because wine, I was very interested, but it seemed almost like this too romantic, like unattainable thing. So my first internship that I had was at a cheese company, so sticking with the fermentation theme. And then I was like, for sure, I'm gonna give wine a shot. So I started to do that the summer before my last semester in college. And also while I was in college, I made two goals for myself. One, to choose a career that I truly loved, and two, to be in a career where I would never stop learning. And wine totally checks both of those boxes. And so, yeah, after my first internship at William Chris, I was like, this is it.
You were sold, huh?
Yeah.
You're right that it is one of those fields that people think is romantic and maybe hard to achieve, but it's exciting to meet just normal people.
Yeah.
Normal people who are doing something they love and making a
Yeah.
beautiful product at the end and sharing it with friends and family, and it's very attainable.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your journey. So you interned at William Chris here on 290, one of our older wineries in the area. And then what happened from that internship? You finished college, and then what?
Yeah, so I had my internship. I finished my last semester, graduated December, came to work at William Chris, and then I left in March of 2019 to go work in New Zealand. I did a harvest over there. That first time I worked in the cellar. So at William Chris, we crush about 1,000 tons through that facility. And at Morisco, we did 13,000 tons. So quite the difference. The facility was much larger. I gained a lot of confidence working in the cellar and learning my way around the cellar. With such a huge facility like that, they just give you your work order and they're like, go do your work. So it's not as, of course, my experience here has been much smaller than that. It's more interactive. You're doing lots of different jobs during harvest. Over there, I had one job the whole time, which was it was still enjoyable, but two totally different experiences. So I did that. I came back here for harvest, and then I left again, went back to Morisco, and that time I worked as a lab intern.
So is that something that's typical for someone pursuing a winemaking path to go to other countries to learn and to gain experience?
Yeah, so definitely lots of young winemakers, they'll go, we call it harvest hopping, so they'll go northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, get as many harvests in as they can just within those first few years to gain experience, travel, which is the best part of it. Gain experience, travel, meet different people. What's beautiful about all of those people flocking to different areas to learn and to work is not only are you gaining experience in a new country, but you meet people from all over the world and you get to hear about their different experiences in winemaking. So,
So people from other countries were
correct.
there that you got to meet, and they were doing the same thing you were doing, but coming from France or Italy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're called internships, but it's not really just for young people who don't have any work experience. You'll have very experienced winemakers who they just want to get away or try something new, and they'll come and um, work a internship abroad somewhere else. So you really do get to hear a lot from people from all over and at different levels in their careers. So
Different perspectives and
yes,
different levels of experience.
correct.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Do you drink a lot of New Zealand wine when you're back home?
Not as much as when I was there. Over there, it's just like floods the market.
Yeah.
I do love a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc though, so every now and then I'll have one of those. But
Nice.
yeah,
So what do you find different in Texas when you're thinking about the processes in New Zealand or the conditions in New Zealand versus what you're experiencing with William Chris here in Texas?
I would say the biggest difference is probably the weather. I mean, that's one of the huge things of growing and making wine in Texas. It's a big challenge. Um, Over there, at least in Marlboro, it's fairly cool. I mean, summers will be warm, but it's not warm like it is here. They get those cool nights. We often don't, at least here in the hill country, maybe a little bit more in the high plains, but yeah, weather, climate, that's probably the biggest difference. And then, of course, soil and all these other factors that play into growing your grapes and making your wine. But especially now, I'm just these warm days, all these days over 100, it's quite different
So
from
we call it diurnal shift. That's the
yes.
science word when it
Yes.
gets hot in the day and cool at night, and the number of degrees that it cools down is what we call diurnal shift, right?
Yes.
I had one of our professors at Texas Tech for the winemaking program once said that places where grapes do really well, there's a good 15 to 30 degrees diurnal shift. It might be 100 degrees in the heat of the day, but you're down to, 70, 75 degrees in the evening. And in the Texas Hill Country, you're 100 degrees during the day, and then at night, it gets dark.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah,
There's
we're
no
lucky
real
if we get down to like 80 degrees, but
yeah, not so
yeah.
much of a shift. Yeah. That's, I think, one of the big things that stuck with me.
Yeah, for sure.
So, tell me a little bit about, it sounds like most of your experience in Texas has been in one form or another with William Chris as a
Correct.
company. But here in the last couple of years, the company purchased an existing vineyard, which was known at the time as Hoover Valley Vineyard, which is outside of Burnett, right? And that vineyard was planted, do you remember when?
They began planting in 2010 with the first, I think it was 2 or 3 blocks at first, and then over the years finished it out.
And how many acres are under vine now?
55 acres.
And so Uplift is now the name of the vineyard, but also the label for William Chris, and you're the winemaker for that particular label.
Yes.
And if I have it right, you're doing only estate fruit for that label,
Yes,
right?
that's correct.
And it's kind of an elevated tasting experience. It's a little kind of hand-holding. When you show up, you get a little welcome glass of wine, and you get to hop in the golf cart and tootle down the aisle and go down the vineyard and sit at a table. Is that for everyone, or was that just me?
No, that's for everyone. That's
I started to think, wait, maybe that's not everyone. Okay.
That is the experience. Yeah.
Okay. So really kind of getting a sense of place.
Yeah. Working and highlighting this single vineyard, that is like our main mission and main goal. And one thing that's attractive to me about that, as being the winemaker and getting to share these wines and this vineyard and the experience with customers, is that it's appealing for very seasoned wine drinkers and people who really know their stuff and know what they like, but it's equally as approachable for people who don't know wine or people who don't know Texas wine, because you're starting just with one site. So you get to learn about the site, you get to learn about the things that are influencing the fruit there, and then you get to taste multiple different varieties from that single site. So for the people who don't know wine or are just learning wine, it's a way for them to kind of hone in on this like one tiny place, and then they can branch out after that. So even though it's an elevated experience and, it's very interactive and everything, it's for everyone. It's not just you have to know wine or
to appreciate these.
Yeah, it's for everyone, and that's I love getting to share my wine with anyone and everyone who will drink it. So yeah, it's a very cool spot.
Sarah mentioned her goal with winemaking is really to kind of focus on being approachable and to not be snobby or to have certain expectations. You have to know this or you have to say these words. And so that kind of resonated with what you just said about having that vineyard experience and understanding that one small space can help someone who's new to wine or new to Texas wine to kind of grasp the concept of what the French call terroir, which is the idea that that a wine tastes like it tastes because of where the grapes are grown, all of the factors that go into that. So this is a perfect example of actually making that true, I think. So that's cool for you to do.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your winemaking philosophy. Is there something that you're trying to accomplish when you make a wine?
Yeah, so kind of to that same tune, being that I'm working with just this single vineyard, my goal, my philosophy, my hope is that I just highlight this vineyard the best way that I can. For me, winemaking is a lot of storytelling. So you're telling the story of the land, you're telling the story of that vintage, the weather patterns, all of these factors that influence the fruit from that year. And it's also storytelling of the person who made it. So maybe things going on in my life at that time, or 1 year from now, I'm not going to be the same person and the same winemaker as I am now. So you will see those changes over time.
And you continue learning, like you said earlier. You're constantly in wine, and I'm sure it's the same in a lot of other fields, but to me, it's more interesting learning, right? So you're evolving with what you learned and what happened last harvest that is going to translate into how you handle your fruit for this harvest. And so that evolves you as a person, as a winemaker.
No two harvests are the same. And just when you think that you've like predicted how the harvest is going to be, it's just like this rug being pulled out from under you. And it's never what you think. It's always a surprise. It's always something new. But those are like the fun challenges of making wine. And like you said, those are the things that we get to learn from. So it's always exciting. It's always something new, and it's fun.
So you're in a little different situation than our other two female winemakers today, because you're making wine for someone else's brand. You're not the owner.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming that means you're not the final decision maker
Mm-hmm.
for things like style
Mm-hmm.
or what the labels are that you're making, what the grapes are that you're using
Mm-hmm.
from one year to the next. So you want to talk a little bit to what those benefits might be and those challenges as well?
Yeah. I mean, fortunately for me, style and pretty much the winemaking as a whole, we're all kind of on this, we were all from the beginning on the same page with all of that. So that's been a plus, especially being that this is an offshoot of a winery. Yeah,
An
we
existing
we have
label.
the
Yeah.
same, we all of our brands have the same overarching philosophy and goals. So this is just another extension of that, another offshoot. So that hasn't been a problem. As far as varieties, it's fortunately the varieties that were all planted at Uplift, they go together. We have Italian varieties, we have Bordeaux varieties, we have Rhone varieties. We have one variety, the Syrah, which has not come online yet. So currently I'm working with the 3 Italian varieties and the 3 Bordeaux varieties. And then also 2 of the white varieties, Roussanne and Marsanne.
Awesome. Do you have a personal preference? Winemakers always hate this question, but do you have a personal preference, like a favorite wine of the moment, a favorite blend that you're super excited about right now?
Right now, my favorite wine that we've put out is the 2020 Aglianico. That wine was really good. Also, honestly, all of the wines from 21 are outstanding. 21 was a really good year at Uplift, and I'm glad that we have those wines available for the Uplift brand to kind of show what can be done from this vineyard. All of those wines are really setting the stage for what will come in the future and what we can do with that fruit. So it's very exciting.
Yeah. So I've had the luxury here recently of holding some blind tastings in my home for some of the industry folks here in the Hill Country. And Aglianico was just a couple weeks ago, and the Uplift Aglianico was one of the top 3 of that tasting.
I saw
We also had Roussanne recently, and Serrano's Roussanne was
awesome.
was the top wine of that day. And then Portree, her Tempranillo showed really well when we did the Tempranillo blind tasting last month. So I would like to say I chose wisely for my winemakers today.
That's very exciting.
But the Aglianico was definitely, it's definitely got a richness and a depth to it that I think lets that brand kind of shine separate from the other labels within the William Chris portfolio.
Yeah.
So I think that's exciting. Tell us a little bit about kind of Uplift as a label, as a brand within a brand, kind of has a different concept than the regular William Chris tasting room. It's a little more hands-on and personal, but it's a little more exclusive too. So tell us a little bit about what folks can expect if they come for a tasting.
Yeah, so Uplift as a brand is a little bit more elevated than our other brands. So with that, you're also getting, like you said, more hands-on. It's a more intimate tasting experience. All of our tastings are one-on-one with your tasting room ambassador. They're teaching you about the wine, they're teaching you about the land, they're teaching you about the history. We have a big focus on education with this brand. So it's not just shoulder to shoulder at a bar with a bunch of people. Love that experience too. You know, there's a time and place for everything, but we're really focused on teaching about all aspects of what we're doing. We have plans for the future to have the upstairs part of the tasting room be a member lounge.
Cool.
So all of our tastings are by appointment only. So if you're a member and you don't, you know, you've been coming for the tastings, you know what's on the menu, but you just want to come and hang out, then we'll have that upstairs available to you for glass and bottles, picnic packs, charcuterie boards, a place for you to come and hang out and actually enjoy the property and give this benefit for our members and remind them why they're members at
Yeah.
Uplift. So yes, very membership driven. Wines are available for purchase only through the tasting room. But we want you to come out. We're not gatekeeping because this is like this secret exclusive thing. It's exclusive because quantities are very limited. We're working only with the top 10% of the fruit. So it is everything is with intention with this brand. And it's not just distribution brand.
Right.
We want you to come in, have the experience, taste the wine, be educated on it. It's that. That's what it is.
Awesome. I like that. And how far is it from Fredericksburg proper?
From Fredericksburg, it's about 1 hour.
Okay. And just if anyone is planning a trip up to see you guys, Parissos is also very close. So it would be easy to use the Texas Wine Lover mobile app and plan a day trip to visit the wineries right there in your area and make a day of it. You mentioned the lounge space upstairs for members. Correct me if I'm wrong, but production is happening at William Chris at the moment, but there is one of the existing buildings is in the works to be converted into a production space, right?
Correct.
But that will be probably next harvest.
That will be
not
by
coming on
next
board
harvest. Yeah. And I'm super excited for that. It's going to be awesome to be able to, we have some acres at High Estate where we harvest it and bring it right into the cellar, but to be able to have all of my production be pulled off the vineyard and immediately into the winery, that's going to be huge. And I don't think there's a lot of places around here that are able to do that. So
what's the case production? You mentioned limited quantities. So what's your case production for Uplift?
At our height, we'll be at about 2,000 cases per year.
Okay. And how does that compare to William Chris as a whole?
William Chris is about 45 to 50,000, and then Lost Draw is about 15,000.
Yeah,
I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do about 65 as a whole.
Total. Do you have any kind of stories or experience that you want to share that has kind of showcases that it has been harder for you or easier for you being a woman in winemaking? Anything you want to share?
I would say this isn't really story, it's more just like advice and like my take.
Great.
But you have to be your own advocate, like for everything in life, not just your work or like anything you do. You have to be your own advocate. And I'm pretty confident that I've done that. You can see I'm quite young and I've done a lot of things in a short time. And that's because I've created those opportunities for myself. And I've also put in the work to make all of that stuff happen. Things don't just happen by chance. And maybe if you're really lucky, some opportunities will fall into your lap. But you've got to put in the hours. You've got to be your own advocate and go after what you want. From day one, I was very clear and upfront with everybody above me that I wanted to be a winemaker, and yeah, I've done it.
I think that's great advice, no matter who you are and no matter what field, is that you've got to work for yourself and you've got to make plans and you might change your plans, but you have to have a plan to be able to execute it, right? Sarah has a quote. She and her husband Bryce have told me for years that their favorite quote is, "The man on the top of the mountain didn't fall there."
Right.
In other words, you've got to make that uphill push to get where you want to be, right?
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite quote or mantra that you want to share?
If you're really after something, keep working until you don't get no as an answer. I mean, there's timing and, time and place for certain things. Of course, you can't rush it. Like, no one's going to be in this top position with no experience and no knowledge of the job and work that they're doing. So also be patient with yourself. That's one thing that I'm constantly practicing at every day because I'm not patient. I just want to do the thing and be there and be done. But Yeah, definitely that.
Yeah, one of my mentors said he could teach me to make wine, but he couldn't teach me to be patient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
We all need to practice that.
Yeah.
Any other tips or thoughts that you want to share maybe with folks trying to get into the winemaking game? The Advocate is fantastic, but anything else come to mind?
I mean, if you're thinking about winemaking, just go out and do it. Reach out to people. Like, people in the wine industry are very willing to help others. Everyone's connected. Like, if you're looking for one thing and you don't know someone, they'll know someone who knows someone. Like, the wine world is very small. If you want to get cellar experience, do a harvest internship. I hear people saying like, "Oh, I don't really know a lot about wine, so I'm gonna work in the tasting room first." And I'm like, "Well, you might learn about the wines, but you're not gonna learn about winemaking in the tasting room.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to just get in there and get your hands dirty." I didn't know anything about cellar work. I mean, I'd taken wine classes in school, but that's not cellar work.
Yeah.
You learn a lot there, and you'll learn quickly if it's for you or not. So yeah,
Not
get in
glamorous.
there. No, get in there and try it out. And if you hate it, now you know you hate it, and you can move on to the next thing. But you won't know unless you try. So just the easiest way is get in there and do it.
Does William Chris have a good program for mentoring or bringing on interns?
We do, yeah. We have at least one harvest intern every year. This year we were looking at having 2 or 3, but it just ended up that we only have one. But yeah, we're very into that. And I started as an intern, so that's one thing that I like to be a part of and help out with is those interns, because I know what it's like to just be like clueless and like walking around.
Maybe next year when your production facility is ready up there, you can have your own intern.
Yeah,
that would
sure.
be exciting.
Yeah, we have our intern this year. She's working a lot in the lab, and I do a lot of the lab stuff as well. So I've been working closely with her, and
Awesome.
Yeah, it's cool.
If you weren't a winemaker, what do you think you'd be doing?
If I wasn't a winemaker, I would be a therapist.
Not a cheesemonger?
No. Well, maybe. I wanted to be a therapist since I was in 8th grade.
Really?
And then right before I went to college, I changed to biology, actually. And then to biology, I went to food science. But I've always been interested in psychology and like that world, so.
So people say wine is a mixture of art and science. I think there's some psychology mixed in there too, because you're making people happy. You're trying to make people happy. And in a case like yours where you are working for a brand, you've got to make the people above you happy too. And so I think it's art, science, and psychology in my opinion.
There's a little dance to it, and you got to learn it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thanks for hanging out with us this morning, Claire.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah.
Here's to a great harvest in 2030.
Yes, I'm excited. Everything's looking really good so far, so.
Awesome.